We're doing a Q&A.
Woo!
Yay!
Is that like your whole intro just then?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Q&A time.
Dude,
This is Sam. This is my girlfriend
perfect.
Kate, who's going to help moderate.
Yeah.
Because every time we do this, it gets unhinged and it takes too long.
And Sam already left, so.
It's fine.
Wait,
All
what's the first question?
First question that I'm going to go with is, obviously we're hitting towards the end of the year. 2021 is coming to a close. So looking back on this past year, what are some accomplishments that you guys are super proud of?
Surviving.
Yeah, that's my answer too.
That's a pretty damn good accomplishment.
This year has been interesting.
In what ways?
Personal reasons, financial reasons, world reasons, all of the above. It's just been tough. Last year, I would have expected last year to be tough because COVID was hitting, but it was actually our best year yet. And then I think we got the delayed response this year. Like everything was going smoothly, and I was like, oh, we could try some new stuff. Let's invest a lot of time into like a new project, trying to do the design series.
Yep.
And then everything just like flopped. Like nothing was working, nothing was selling, and we had to pivot a little bit, go to start doing customs, which we haven't done in a long time.
Yeah.
But actually, I enjoy it now that we're doing half custom and half like the normal stuff that we do.
Yep.
So it took a lot of time to kind of like shift gears and get back into rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
But I think so far
by
good now.
like September though, we started like it wasn't like a full year worth of struggling. It was maybe like 6 months of really feeling bad. And
Yeah, it was 6 months of like
it's
hell.
definitely gotten
and then-
better.
Yeah, but it's still not 100%. Like ever since I don't know summer hit, we've been trying to get back in rhythm, but like things just keep popping up. Like this month, like you and I were sick. Last
Yeah.
month was like Thanksgiving. The month before that, I don't even remember. But
Holidays are
Always tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like every 2 weeks you have an interruption.
yeah,
But it's better now. We're good.
yeah, and also I think my personal thing that I'm proud of is I got the Yanagiba like pretty much almost dead on. So
That's
next
something to
year,
look forward to.
yeah, next year, I think we should be having some Yanagibas in progress and actually being done and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
Definitely an accomplishment. Related, but not specific to 2021, have there been aspects of running this business that are just consistently hard to do?
Yeah, just being consistent. Like, actually getting in every day and making a little bit of progress is actually kind of tough. It's been the struggle ever since I went full time. And I feel like only recently, like as of like last year and this year, have I really developed like routines and stuff to be better about it. But even then, it's like 1 week's gonna be good, the next week's gonna be bad, 1 week's gonna be good, and then it flips and flops.
A couple people asked about like generically what inspires you guys, but let's take that a step further. What inspires you to keep with that routine?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Well, I mean, just to maintain this kind of cushy lifestyle. We have a lot of flexibility and space to kind of do with our lives what we want. But I think because of that, it's easy to let certain things lapse depending on what we're excited about.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes knives aren't what we're excited about, but the reason we come in is to one, make something, which for me is a big draw, and then two is to maintain this kind of awesome kind of way of living.
Yeah, and part of it for me is also like I think about you. It's like I want to provide you with the best living that I could possibly provide for you guys.
Yeah,
and also
and same thing coming from this side where like I want you to be successful so we can keep doing this, you know. So whatever I can do to like help that along.
Yeah, I think bigger picture, both of us are kind of in it for the same reason.
Yeah.
And smaller picture, like I want to get better making every single knife. Like I want these knives to be the best that I could possibly make them.
Yeah.
And you always talk about refining things over and over and over, and I agree with that, but sometimes I do get distracted by flashy, fun things.
Well, and that's why you're as successful as you are, you know. You wouldn't stand out if you didn't do flashy, fun things. yeah, I got no problem with that. But yeah, it's to maintain this. Like, how often do you get to work with a friend and really the money isn't great, but other than that, everything else is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Time off whenever you want it, and just a really creatively fulfilling job.
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely rare.
There are people who have worse, parts to play in life.
For sure. In a lot of ways, you guys are definitely very lucky.
Oh yeah,
but it comes with a lot of
lucky.
But it does come with a lot of hardships and like consequences as well.
oh yeah.
I don't know though. Like, life,
You don't think so?
Life provides those. This job, I mean, other than last year, it doesn't really provide a whole lot of, at least for me, a whole lot of anxiety. But for Don, it's another issue.
It's a lot of like decision making that wears on me. It's not really like doing the thing. It's like what do we do next to make sure that this keeps going as long as we can keep it going?
Manage it, yeah.
A lot of people asked about favorites of yours, like favorite knives to make, favorite shapes, favorite handles. I feel like that's a really difficult question to answer, but multiple people were asking about it. If you were to say, like, what's your favorite thing to come to work and do, like favorite thing to work on, what is it?
It's the new thing.
The new thing.
Whatever the new thing is that week, that's the most exciting for me. In the past 2 years, it's been the Yanagiba. Before that, it was a sci-fi knife. Next year, probably Damascus stuff and Yanagi's. Like, I'm still learning a lot on those. Oh, hi. Hello.
So are they asking like what your favorite part of the job is, or what your favorite knife to make is?
Multiple. One is what favorite knife to make. Another is favorite shape. Another is favorite thing to do at work.
I like the basic shape.
Define basic shape.
Of like the octagonal angular handle that we've been doing for years. I really like that. I think it's gorgeous. And I like that knife. So I like the more like less flashy, this thing that we've been doing for years. And then like favorite thing about the job is like refining your technique, trying to get as good as you can.
Hi, Pepper. Come up. Come here.
And like getting
Hello.
that like flow vibe where the work kind of just does itself and you just are, at peace with things.
Like that part where you've just gotten into it and things are going smooth and moving.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the best part of like, other than relationships with people, that's the best thing you could be doing with your life is trying to hit that spot over and over again.
Pepper, what do you think?
Pipper has a lot of opinions.
Yeah, he does.
Best pho topping.
Green onions.
Duh, right? I was
Yeah.
wondering, Jackie, why would green onion not be the best pho
It's the
topping?
best topping for everything.
That was my gut reaction too. Do you have a different opinion?
Ice cream?
Yeah. You've never had green onion ice cream?
Onion ice cream? Onion dairy is a tough sell.
Onion dairy is definitely a tough
I
sell.
got a quesadilla maybe, but like fucking milk?
Yeah, all right. No onion dairy. Got it. How would you recommend getting to know chefs and other knife nuts as a kitchen knife maker? Like, how do you immerse yourself in that culture? How do you get more well-known? Kind of talk about your experience as a knife maker just in Tucson. How did you get connected? How would you recommend other people to get connected?
Well, I think I'm really lucky in that Tucson has a very tight-knit community and a lot of cities don't. So like once I started getting to know like a few people in Tucson, everybody talks. And then all of a sudden I feel like I've just become friends with a lot of the chefs here and people just know each other. I think the hardest part is like getting to know that first person, like walking into a restaurant and be like, hey, I make knives. Do you want to test them or something? And then you have to make some knives for people to test. And then word eventually spreads. And I don't know. It's getting to know people in any sort of market, right? Like it's the same principle. Like you get to know the first person and then eventually it all trickles down the road.
Like the networking concept is kind of true for multiple businesses.
Yeah.
How did you pick? So you talk about testing knives, which I think is super interesting. Obviously with chef's knives, you want professional chefs to test your knives. How would you go about picking someone to test your knives? Like, how do you decide who the best person is to test a particular knife for you?
I don't think you look for the best. I think you look for who's there at the right time. And for me, when I was in college, I knew some friends who knew some chefs, and they're like, "Hey, let me introduce you," and that's how it worked out.
So kind of like take whatever opportunity you can.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're never gonna have a perfect moment. You just gotta jump in somehow, and then find any opportunity, really, especially when you're starting out. And in the online aspect, it's kind of the same thing. You have to find some community where you can show off your work and not be like spamming people and stuff like that, and then see if somebody wants to try it and talk about your work online. And that's kind of how it started for me also. Is like, I started on kitchen knife forums. I sold a knife to somebody for $200, and they passed it around, and people got to know my work. And then from there, it's just been word of mouth. It cycles.
I think too, like, I don't think it's far-fetched to assume that cities would have like events where people come to cook, or, they pool some chefs together to do a thing. And I think just going to an event like that and palling around and starting up conversations, not with the intention of like hawking yourself, but
just like showing up and being present.
Yeah, going to as many of those as you can, enjoy the food, make it an event for yourself. But also, if you strike up a conversation with somebody, who knows who they know, and you're in that environment anyway. And and there really is nothing wrong with going to a restaurant and being like, "Hey, I make knives. Here's one. Would you like to try it?"
Right. Yeah. Most chefs are like, "Hell yeah, I'll try that."
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea to make like one knife that you're pretty proud of and just let people use it for like a week or two.
Yeah.
And then get feedback and adjust for the next one.
Yep.
And I will say the first few like networking events where I hung out with chefs and stuff, it's really just the chefs like hanging out at a bar and they were just shooting the shit. And I was super nervous because like, I don't know anybody here. I brought a knife to this random place. And I just feel awkward. And then like once I got in and I talked to somebody like, "Oh yeah, that's awesome. Let me show you this guy." And then everybody was like checking out the knife, and then they wanted to try it out.
Well, like that knife or that competition, if you go to a thing like that, you could just like talk to a wife of a dude.
Yeah, exactly.
And if the conversation heads that way, she'll be like, "Oh, I should introduce you to my husband," or whatever.
Exactly.
Tucson knife fight is what we're referring to?
It's a local like cooking competition, basically.
That might exist elsewhere in other cities.
It does.
Sure, similar concepts happen elsewhere. How do you find the right geometry for a knife? And let's narrow that down to specifically blade geometry. There are lots of geometries in knives. Don could probably talk about this for days. So let's stick with like blade geometry.
Oh my God. I feel like we're learning right now how to do geometry on knives.
How do you test your existing geometries?
We test some potatoes, but
we kind of did it the hard way. I mean, if you want to save yourself some mental effort, like 2 facets, a like flat on top, and then a second facet that goes to a 0 edge, and rounding that off, blending it together will set you up pretty well. The trick is to get to a 0 edge and figuring out where you want that transition between the facets. But try a couple of different things, try a couple of different thicknesses, and eventually you'll find something that works. That's years of our life trying to figure that out. So yeah, basically you want to try, if you're doing a complex grind, you just want to fuck around with pushing that geometry up, pushing it down, playing with thicknesses and testing on potatoes until you get something that pops the food pretty well.
And if you're starting out making kitchen knives, you have no point of reference, like test on potatoes and carrots. Carrots will tell you when a knife is way too thick. You don't want your geometry to like get stuck in a carrot and break it in half. So you want to be able to cut the carrot, have it pop off. Have it like release on potatoes and stuff like that. And there's a fine balance between all of them. Like there's no one solution that's going to be able to cut everything and release and have the right weight and all of that like simultaneously.
Wait, so on a carrot, you're going for slices through, but doesn't like bluntly break the carrot in half.
Yeah.
You mean?
Yeah.
Like as you go down with the knife, if the carrot just like kind of fractures, that's not what you're looking for. You want like a clean slice.
Yeah, to an extent. Like if you're making a workhorse, it's obviously not going to be able to like just glide right through a carrot. So you have to know, you have to decide like what the knife is going to be good for, right? And that's kind of your starting point.
So to illustrate the shiny bit here on this like forge finish knife, this is what I'm talking about a second bevel. So do this first, blend it a little bit, and then test. And then your mission from there is just to push that line up and down to test, how it works wherever you put it. And then to also work on how thick your knife is. And you want to test all the way along the knife too. But that's the basic gist of it. And it's really not that complicated. It's just years of us trying to figure out where
we want it.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about food release trends with knife makers?
I'm convinced that hollow grinds are useless.
Like you say, I'm talking about an S grind.
Yeah.
Why?
And
is that a trend?
It is a trend.
Oh
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Why?
I think it's all that trend is all aesthetic.
So not actually related to like the function of releasing a food.
Because if you can make a really clean looking hollow grind, it looks good on Instagram.
Do you agree with that?
Me and him have a...
we're discovering different things at different rates right now.
Right.
I think if you can figure out your convex geometry and get it really good, if you add a slight hollow above that, it could potentially release food better.
I think the only place where it might work is something really thin. That is the only circumstance.
And I think it might benefit on something thicker. It lets you change the angle of the blade more drastically without compromising on.
What are you cutting with a thicker thing?
Potatoes,
what kind of food
onions.
release do you need on a really thick knife?
Well, that's the...
Like if you're cutting meat, like who gives a shit?
That's the basis of the question, right? Like how far do you want the food release to go?
Right.
And to what extent are you willing to work towards that? I think some people chase it too much because it's one aspect of many on a kitchen knife. And I've seen a lot of people invest a lot of time into an S-grind, except they still don't cut well. Like I've tested some S-grind knives that still don't cut right because they don't have the fundamental of like the geometry right above the edge, which is 90% of the performance right there.
That's where all the work is.
Yeah.
And you could get that without doing an S-grind because the food is released before it even gets to that hollow.
Are there so moving away from S-grind, are there other trends you guys have been seeing that you either like or don't?
I think just like really busy knives, handles that are busy, and then like Damascus that's busy. It just it looks like static on a television. It's too much.
Do you guys ever see trends from like knife users? Like are most of these trends from knife makers or like aesthetics of people staring at knives, or are any trends the result of like people actually cutting things and testing things and saying, oh man, this cuts really well?
Yeah, there's trends, like especially on like the Reddit stuff, like Chef's Knives subreddit and stuff like that, and also kitchen knife forums and other forums. There's trends where people will notice certain things, and they will pinpoint focus on that and hammer it, and then it becomes this echo chamber, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, since this knife does that if this knife does that really well, then every knife should have that, right? S-grinds is one example. Somebody started to do an S-grind, like, oh, this works well. Maybe not because of the S-grind. Maybe it is because of the S-grind, but since this knife does it really well, that means any knife that doesn't have that is a piece of shit. And I'm taking it to an extreme, but I see that a lot in online communities where like people see things to a certain extent and then they translate that across the board. And it's not necessarily that it doesn't really work like that all the time. Well,
there's a tactic to the S-grind that I can get behind, which is like, it's something that shows in a photo that you put some kind of extra effort into your knife. So the utility of it is kind of not in the cut, but in the sale.
Is like the misconception though that the grind is better for performance? Like, are you cool with it as an aesthetic choice, but not cool with it saying I did it for function?
I would say, yeah, there's an element of that, but for the lay person, it just looks cooler. You know, like somebody who's not on Reddit and
Sure.
knife forums or anything like that. They see something like that and they're like, wow, that probably took some time to do. So I think it's a perception thing. I think it looks really nice until it gets oversaturated and everybody's doing it, and then people look for something new.
I will say that for some people, an S grind works really well. Like Dan's knife that we tested, it worked really good.
Oh yeah, no,
And like,
they work. I'm just not convinced they're necessary.
right, yeah. I think a really nice S grind, like if you see it in photos and stuff also, like, they've put in the work, they're putting in, a certain amount of work in R&D and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like one layer that they've added to the knife that you're like, oh, I think they're doing a good job. I could see myself using that.
Oh yeah.
Whereas like our grinds, for example, we don't really have S grinds on there, and it's harder to tell in photos. Like, well, does it cut good or not? Like, I can't tell.
Yeah. Whereas if you have an S grind,
Like, chances are it probably cuts at least very
you
decent.
could just see it in a picture. That's the big
Yeah, I
thing.
guess.
Like, you can't see our geometry in a photo on Instagram. It's just not.
And people do buy your knives sight unseen. So that's an interesting concept with like online sales specifically. The idea that like what you see. Yeah, I get your point on perception being kind of the main factor there.
Which, fuck it. If it gets you more exposure and you sell more knives, and as long as your knives do actually cut well, it's completely fine. I'm not judging the cut. I'm just saying by the time you've hit the S, your food is already released.
So you don't need the benefit.
You don't need that like extra swoop other than a visual indicator of your skill with the grinder.
That is one point where Sam and I are slightly different. I think an S grind done really well can add.
We're going to run a experiment.
This sounds like a video that should happen
Yeah.
soon.
We should make a video on it. I'll make a knife that has our usual geometry without an S grind. You make a really nice S grind knife, and we'll test it. We'll test on multiple types of food. We should do a couple. We should do a really thick one, a really thin one, and
So we
I
have a
was
whole
also going to
series.
say do a series, cut them on do multiple cut trials, but then also trade. So you have different users with the knives as well.
and we might learn something.
I think you might.
We will.
We might say, oh, an S grind is necessary if you have a giant, thick ass knife, because otherwise the food won't come off of it.
I think this is actually a pretty cool video concept.
Yeah, it's something that we are constantly reevaluating. So it's a good idea.
Well, like a hollow grind is good on a Yanagiba. Like, there's a place for hollow grinds. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not questioning the utility. I just think it doesn't matter on a regular knife.
Speaking of the Yanagiba, when is your Yanagiba video coming out, and how many will there be?
Next year, I'm aiming for 4 parts. Right now, I've got 3 that are almost done, and it's taken me 2 years.
Do you plan on doing any other Japanese style knives? For example, do you plan on making more Yanagiba? What are your long-term plans with Yanagiba? Do you have any other like Japanese inspired knives in the works? The word tuna sword was mentioned on a couple occasions in these questions.
I've been working in the single bevels for 2 years now, and I feel like I'm finally at a place where I'm comfortable and confident with them. And I want to keep doing them. Like, I want it to be like part of the repertoire that we do. So, our normal knives are kind of inspired by Japanese knives. Like the profile, the geometry, it's based off of a Japanese knife. Like most of our stuff is inspired by Japanese function, but we just take it into a different design
insist
and
on
fit.
using the Japanese names for them.
Yeah, I use both because like our knives aren't really gyutos. They're not really chef's knives. They're like a hybrid in between. So I don't know.
But the Yanagiba is not going away.
No. Yeah, I'm gonna keep making yanagibas. I'm gonna make some osubas, which is like the vegetable equivalent. And then if somebody wants something crazy like an eel knife, I could try making one of those too. Like same principle. They're just you shift the profile and the thickness and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like once you can figure out a Yanagiba, like the world's your oyster. They're
Right.
a lot of things seem less complicated when you've done something like that.
Oh my god, yeah. After doing the yanagis, I'm such a better knife maker.
Right. That's another reason to do flashy shit, to get better.
Yep.
Have you ever made a switchblade knife or experimented with something similar? Let's also kind of expand on that and go with, will you ever make something that's not a fixed? Like, we ever get into folders, switchblades? Have you ever tried?
I mean, I'm taking Nick Rossi's folder class next year. So, yeah. But it's not, I don't ever see it being like our bread and butter. Like, I'll make a folder here and there for fun and for an exercise, but they're just so time consuming, and it's such a different process. And it's just not in my interest.
Are you interested in switchblades? Because that was also specifically mentioned.
You know, I don't even know what a switchblade really is. Like, that's how uninterested I am in them. Like, I want to make it a liner lock, which is what I know of. But, like...
I associate switchblades with some kind of cool release mechanism.
Yeah, I think of that in my head, too, but I don't know.
But I don't know if that's actually what it is.
Sam, do you have any interest in making...
No.
Straight up no.
I don't.
A lot of people want to know, when are you going to make more spoons, and how do they get them?
We could figure out an easy way to like pump out spoons.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it. It's just on the back burner.
Let's make really sharp spoons.
Don and I have actually talked about this before, the concept of like an ice cream spade. So like a sharpened, really beefy spoon for cutting into ice cream.
Yeah, because I like
a horrible
ice cream
idea.
Dangerous.
I like ice cream that's like almost solid, like rock hard. Except scooping it is really challenging. So I was like, I need something where I could like put all of my weight and force and just drive it in and like twist out the ice cream.
So he wants like a super pointy, I guess not sharpened, but
maybe
like
not.
pointy garden spade, basically, that will like smash it.
I was thinking
pull out ice
something
cream.
like circular, and like if you're eating a like a stew, and there's like a particularly big cube of like beef, you could just kind of
that you want to
rock
kind
it
of
through it, and then
slice your cheek right open.
no, not like like a cutting edge, but like something that
Like
has
butter knife sharp, right?
yeah, maybe a little sharper than that, like
Or
a
even just
rounded
a
over edge,
Even
something that you could crush it against the plate or whatever,
Yeah.
and it would cut it apart.
I'm picturing a spoon with like a particular angle that's just like convenient for kind of hitting up against the bowl and
Yeah,
smashing
like I cut
something
shit
in
with a
half.
fork all the time, but like the thickness is too.
yeah, like the angles and the thickness are just
Yeah.
wrong. So you want a spoon that has like this perfectly ergonomic.
I don't know.
little-
We're
I
gonna corner a market and
Yeah.
sell 1,000.
Yeah. We're gonna give up knives and just
Just go into
do
spoons.
spoons. Yeah.
I mean, untreaded territory, really. Like
Yeah. Who else is making spoons?
Yeah,
Nobody
exactly.
makes spoons.
at our level, come on.
Come on, guys. All right, a couple questions for Sam that were not directly asked to you, but I know that you'll get better answers. So
Okay.
these questions are for you. One, do you guys listen to music while you work? And if so, what do you listen to?
Listen to all the shit that Don listens to.
What kind of shit does Dawn listen to?
It's like a weird mix of classical, jangly hipster music, anime, fucking
Weeb.
weird weeb weirdness, and like super posh, modern kind of orchestra stuff. I'm in mind like cinematic orchestra and
Yeah.
bonobo and hidden orchestra. All these like, oh, you don't know who this is? Oh, well, they do this, and they're really cool. So it's like a mixture of garbage and like really nice music. But the problem is it's on fucking repeat. The amount of times I've listened to every Bonobo album, every Phanogram album.
Every Jay Brecky album.
Right. And I the one
Which
thing
I
I put
loved,
my
but-
foot down is on jangly hipster music and the anime weeb
The
shit.
weeb stuff.
Like, I don't mind if it's the Final Fantasy soundtrack,
That's
but
not...
if it's the weeb rock
Yeah, yeah.
that plays before your favorite like harem anime,
Yeah.
I want to kill myself.
Don and I actually have a lot of similar tastes in music, but the weeb shit one is one that I
makes me
totally
sick to my
side
stomach.
with Sam on.
That and if there's a fucking xylophone, some flaky ass woman singing, and like I don't know, like a acoustic guitar, and they're singing about emotions. It's just like, please, Don, have better taste.
The other thing that I love about Don and his music choices is he'll do this thing, and I'm sure he does this at work too, but he'll do this thing where like he'll turn on his music very loudly and then leave.
Leave the fucking room!
So you're like, are we all just gonna listen to this while you're gone? Or like, did you
He'll
want
put on Phanogram. I like them. They're fine.
like
I mean, I hate them now, but he'll put that shit on. I've heard that album a million times and then just go grind. He cannot hear it. The grinder is very loud. He's wearing ear protection. I've gotten to the point where I just fucking pause it. Like,
I think that's the best thing to do, honestly. He does it at home, too.
you know what I should do? You know what I really should do? I should put on like all the garbage I'm listening to in my headphones, just loudly. Like I have a Bluetooth speaker. I will just play like political podcasts and
that'll be good for him.
like religious fulminating, like all sorts of just crazy shit, and then play them over and over again.
Yeah, repeat them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about you though? Do you also listen to music while you work? What kind of stuff do you like to listen to? I know you do some podcasts while you
I don't
work,
really like
right?
listening to music. Maybe some, hip hop. Yeah, I like EDM music a little bit. Like I like music, but I get enough from Don. I'm good.
Yeah,
can I listen to something else?
It's more Don.
I mean, Don is
not the music.
really, like, 75% of his taste is good. The problem is the repetition. But then there is this 25% that is absolutely horrific.
Yeah. Another question for you that's hopefully less triggering.
Okay.
How are Rocky and his doggos, and are they still in the shop?
Still living his best life. He's up there.
Do you want to like do a quick show and tell of who they are and where they're at?
Sure, but
Yeah, I feel like you gotta.
I mean, if you don't know, you're not meant to know.
Everyone's about to know.
Who is meant to know?
It's worth knowing.
So this is Rocky's house. Sorry, pal. I know you're fucking vibing, but that's Rocky,
What's up, Rocky?
and he's got his Doge in here. There he is. You probably can't see that on the camera, but he lives up on top of our like tool cabinet.
And would you say they're doing well?
I think Rocky's like transcended all like worries in life. He's enlightened. I don't think I've met a dude that's like more just okay with who he is.
Yeah.
Solid dude.
Yeah.
Pineapple on pizza. Pepper,
I mean,
why are you leaving the garage?
if you could crawl into your own grave, that'd be great.
Pineapple on pizza, done.
No. I mean, I'm also picky about pizza, and like the pizzas that people put pineapple on.
I'm picky about something.
Who knew? Best soda.
I like a good root beer.
Will you ever renew your root beer blog?
Oh, I thought about it, but I don't drink a lot of soda anymore. And root beer is like the only soda I go back to, and it's like once every 3 months.
Are there... Oh, did you have a comment?
Pepsi, but I'll never drink it again.
What, Pepsi favorite because of like nostalgia reasons, or...
Yeah, that was my get fat soda.
Ooh.
Are there any foods that you make that inspire you to continually like improve your knife making game? Like anything that we cook at home where you're using a knife and you're like, damn, I'm proud to use this knife while cooking this thing.
Anything with green onions.
Green onions. Why?
I try to get the thinnest green onions as a garnish for like soup and stuff, and a normal chef's knife just doesn't do it. And I've actually made an usuba for myself just to cut green onions. And
I like when you can just like, you have a brick of bacon, like it's still cold, so it's all stuck together, and you could just one slice like cut all the way through it.
I also find that very satisfying. I know that this is like not about me, but one answer to this question for me is just I love using the kitchen axe just to chop whatever the hell it is.
it's a challenge.
So for me, anytime we're cooking, I'm like inspired by knife making just when we try to use the axe for ridiculous things.
Yeah, I mean it's cool for what it is, but it's not great.
It's kind of hard to use.
No, part of the design is you can really, like, you can choke up into the blades. It's like really nice.
Which I like. It's fun to experiment with because there's a lot of different ways to hold it, like different ways to use it.
I think there's something to that design. You just would need to make it thinner. Like, it's far too thick for like a everyday kitchen.
We've made a thin version. Like, we made a Nakiri version of that, and I'm sure that's amazing to use.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
But it's a pain in the ass to make that shit.
I know I really want you to make more of those, but I know that. Would you ever make more of those?
Yeah. I want to make a Damascus one. I want to make one that has like better balance because the one we have, I think, could be improved. One with thinner geometry.
Yeah.
I think it's a fun knife. They're cool.
I think they're cool too.
Yeah.
A couple just like knife maker beginner questions. What would be your recommendation for a beginner's grinder and why?
That's hard. It depends how hard you want to get into it, right? Any 2x72 grinder, which is the standard for knife making, is going to be almost $1,000, and that's not even looking at like probably a motor and VFD. I think you can get pretty good ones with a motor and VFD for like $1,500, but that's a lot of money. Like,
What did you
You
start
don't
on?
need a VFD.
you need one that's not going to go blazing fast though. Like ours that doesn't have a VFD is half speed, which is okay.
Just do that.
And the one we have is a kit grinder. I don't know if they still make them anymore, but like if you can kind of like assemble and build your own little kit and find your own wheels and motor, I think that's a good way to go.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like I know people use like the 2x48 grinders from like Grizzly or something like that. They're okay, but you're gonna run into like that threshold really quick as far as efficiency.
Try and find a kit. I think a kit's a good idea just because it'll empower you to be able to fix your own grinder if it goes bad.
The kit that I got is called the Grinder in a Box by Polar Bear Forge, and I got that thing like 10 years ago. I don't know if it still exists, but hopefully it does. There's also like KMG clones, like the EERF grinder, which is free in reverse. That one you could just like get the CAD model, laser cut it, and then weld it yourself. So there's options out there. There are so many options that's where I struggle to answer the question.
This one also has a lot of options, but for a beginner, what steel would you guys recommend?
1084.
How would you heat treat it?
Send it out or find a friend, and if you're really desperate, then I guess you could try to use a forge.
Why do you recommend sending it out?
Because
And why is it the best steel?
if you use a forge or a torch or something, you can get it relatively close, but even really good makers, their eyes aren't, they're not tuned to be able to tell you absolute temperature. Like you could be able to tell relative temperature if you have something as a reference, but if you're looking at a glowing object in the dark, like how do you know if that's 1500 or 1600? It's gonna be hard. And 100-degree differences make a difference in the grain structure, in the hardness, in your yield strength in the end, and it's all affected by your heat treat. And if really good makers also struggle heat treating by eye, then a new maker is really, really going to struggle. 1084 is a good steel because it has a good amount of carbon. It's not too much carbon. It doesn't have a lot of alloying elements. It is the most forgiving as far as like homebrew heat treating and that kind of stuff. And it's really good. Like a good 1084 blade, super easy to sharpen, holds an edge really well, easy to grind, easy to sand. It's just all around good.
So recommended for beginners, but also something that you as an advanced maker would use.
I mean, it's the gold standard for Damascus too. 1084, 15 and 20. So anybody that shits on 1084, they're shitting on like every modern Damascus knife out there, and like there's a lot of them. So take that for what you will.
For a beginner, what about handle materials and handle shapes?
Stick with simple handle materials. Find something that's stable like ironwood or stabilized wood that from a source that you trust. I would stay away from like carbon fiber because it's nasty to work with, hard to grind, destroys everything, including your lungs.
Paper micarta.
Yeah, any micarta is pretty good. G10 is pretty good.
Just start with like a wedge right at the ricasso, and then an octagon.
Yeah, octagonal shapes are good. Yeah. Coke bottle shapes.
It'll improve your grinding because you have to like try and make the octagon even on either side, and
Yeah.
What's the worst steel you guys have worked with? Like, what's the hardest or most like difficult to grind steel that you've ever done? What's the biggest pain in the ass of steels that you've
Nitro
done?
V?
No, S90V.
S90V. That's
And why is it a pain in the ass? Why did you choose to use it? Would you use it again?
it. Just dislikes abrasives.
We use S90V for blades that aren't intended to be sharpened often. Like, we have a friend who has a boating knife with one, and he uses it for like trimming brisket and like cutting down like steaks and stuff like that, but not really for heavy breakdowns. So I thought it was the perfect steel for them. And then like, I think for certain gift knives where I know they're not going to really sharpen them and take care of them like super well, like it's a good steel to just be like a beater knife, but it sucks to grind. It sucks to cut. It sucks to sand. Like you can barely sand that shit.
Pippa grease, that sucks.
Yeah.
What about handle material? Same question. What's the most unfortunate handle making experience you've had because of the material?
The ones that aren't made right. Like the ones that are like, I've had some shredded carbon fiber blocks that were mostly resin that aren't even cured properly. So it like melts, it just crumbles. Anytime you get a good finish, any change in temperature will just like make it not nice anymore. Like it's just, I don't know. Anything that's not stabilized right or made right is just shit. Whereas like
carbon fiber kind of sucks.
some of the good stuff is really nice to work with, but it does suck. Like you got to cover up. You got to be really diligent with the dust.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's more steps. And like when I don't know about you, but when you're hand sanding, like it's really hard to see scratches, especially the carbon fiber that's just random orientations of carbon fiber.
What about the stuff that's like lightning strike or has other materials in the carbon fiber? Are those harder to work with too?
They're harder to grind because the copper makes the heat fly through them.
That's kind of what I was wondering. Does it just
but
like
hand
change?
sanding, I think they're really cool.
Yeah.
Like,
They
you're
look
really,
awesome.
You're really proud of them when they're done because they're so pretty.
Yeah, you just got to be careful with the strands poking out and stuff.
I would say just like middling hard,
Yeah.
like not too annoying.
Yeah, we don't have materials that are just like, oh, I'm never going to work with that again because it's difficult.
Oily wood. Oily wood.
Oh, oily wood for me because I'm allergic to it.
Yeah.
But you weren't always allergic to it, right?
Yeah. Be careful with the wood that you're using.
Why?
If it's like oily wood like cocobolo or like blackwood and stuff, if you're not allergic to it and you get exposed to it enough, you will be allergic to it. And it's a bad allergic reaction. Like I wasn't allergic for years. I used it and I always wore a respirator, but the dust would get on my skin. And then in summer, when I get sweaty, it absorbs into your bloodstream, and enough exposure, all of a sudden I was just like breaking out in hives for like 2 months.
Yeah.
And I never touch that. I never touch it anymore. It's bad. Like once you start getting rashes along your chest, that's
Your
bad.
ding dong itches.
Yeah, you don't want that. Yeah.
My ding dong itches enough. It doesn't help.
You don't need any additional stimulus.
Are we gonna keep that in the video?
Just cut it out.
I think it's up to you.
We're keeping
You're the
it.
one editing it. How do you package your knives for shipping? Walk us through the process. How long has it taken you to come up with a shipping method that you're happy with? Would you make changes in the future?
I want to make changes. I just don't know how yet. I use indestructible mailers from
Pepper.
Uline.
Try it again. How do you pack your knives for shipping?
I use indestructible mailers from Uline, which is like this really hard cardboard. You can step on it. It'll be fine. I vacuum. So I sharpen everything, make sure everything's oiled up. I cork the tip with a fresh cork. You don't want to use cork that's been used because the tannins will oxidize the steel a little bit if it's carbon steel. And then I vacuum seal it. So you just take vacuum seal as like a sous vide bag or something and seal it up. And then I smash it between charcoal foam and then put it in the box, wrap it up, send it out. And I get it shipped and insured. And so far, everything's been pretty good. I haven't had any catastrophic failures or anything like that.
What packing changes would you want to make in the future?
I want to make something a little bit more elegant. So right now, it's okay, but it's not like you open and you're like, wow, I'm impressed by this. It's very utilitarian, which I'm happy with. The problem with the packing solution that I have is if I want something super elegant, generally you design around one set of dimensions and like all the packaging is the same, so that it's very efficient and like you could design around that one thing. But all of our knives are different. Like how do you design something that's super nice that fits for everything, then that's where I struggle a little bit right now. But I'm happy with what I got so far.
Do you find it hard to get valuable feedback from paying customers? How do you go about getting feedback on your work? Why is it important to get feedback on your work?
Well, it's important to get feedback on your work so that you know kind of where you're at. So like, you don't want to be making knives that you're like, I think this cuts well, but I don't really know. Because you could make a bunch of them, send them out, and then all of a sudden you have like 10 knives that are like not really to your standard.
Do you tend to get that feedback, or do you find feedback from paying customers valuable?
A lot of customers will not give you the feedback that you really want. Like most of the time you have to find the feedback, and sometimes it comes from other makers. Sometimes it comes from chefs that really know their stuff, like Taro, my friend in Oregon. He knows his knives really well. There are certain people like that where they know their stuff, they know their knives, they know the knives as far as like a performance standpoint. And you just got to seek those people out and send them a knife to try and get it back and get feedback. But like some customers really just want a knife and they want to trust in your abilities to be able to make a knife like that. And then some customers are in it to support makers. So it kind of goes a little bit both ways. You got to find.
Well, we wouldn't like listen to a layperson's advice, but I don't think lay people are really giving advice out. And then, the people that we want advice from, we seek out. So the boning knife dude, Taro, some of the collectors are really nice to get information from just because they kind of know what sells. So on the business side, they could probably give you some tips, but these are all people that are professionals and they live in this world. So
yeah. And I think the hard part is like, you got to find your own solution, because our knives are so different from Marco's, who are so different from another makers. They're all so different.
They have to be.
They do, yeah. You can't just copy someone's knife and expect to be successful. Like it doesn't. You might be able to get by, but
yeah. I mean, you can copy a design, but you have to iterate, or else you'll just fail in the cradle.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we took inspiration from Japanese knives, or you did, but obviously you iterated on what inspiration you got.
Yeah, and you just got to figure out something that you like. So like you got to know how to cut stuff to an extent.
Right.
And then figure out, do you like the way a certain knife balances? Do you like the way it like goes through food and pops off food? Do you like the way it sharpens and is able to be maintained over time? Like those are all things that the maker has to decide, because everything is a little bit of a compromise.
Yeah. But I think if you're a beginner, you should pick a knife that's challenging and try and copy it, and just don't sell it. Because the lessons you'll learn from that experience and having something to compare it against will kind of move you up the ladder faster, I think.
Yeah. Try to find a store that has like Japanese knives. Like in Arizona, there's Phoenix Knife House. In California, there's Japanese Knife Imports. And just like ask if you could pick up knives and feel their geometry, and then bring in something that you've been working on, and like compare the two. Ask the owner for feedback, because a lot of times they know their stuff. Like they deal with knives on a regular basis. Yeah,
but when you're just beginning, do something challenging that you can compare to, and just try and exactly replicate it.
That way you have like a physical thing to cut and yours to compare to.
Yeah, exactly. And the lessons you'll learn from doing something that's challenging will get you better faster.
Yep.
Will you ever make a knife making DVD or online course of some kind for people to purchase?
I've thought about it. I don't think I will. It's just so much time, like so much editing time and like planning time, and then like it's a lot.
Will you continue to teach physical classes like in person though?
Oh yeah, I think that's very valuable for certain people, and it's fun for us. And there's no way that we could like take that knowledge and dump it into a DVD. Like you'd have so many DVDs worth of just shit that we dump in those classes. It's so much information. So many little details, and so much of it is like you just have to practice it, and then we tell you feedback and like, nope, push that a little bit here, there. You got to adjust your arm angle and stuff like that.
Would you consent to doing basically an online version of that class though?
That was my next question.
Or like people will show you, like it's interactive where you have like 6 or 7 people on a Zoom and like show you their progress over a series of weeks or something like that.
Like same concepts, just remote.
Maybe it's just
It'd
not
be hard to teach because you can't.
Yeah,
like,
you can't feel the geometry.
Yeah, I think for that reason, probably not. It's just not in the cards. It's not in my interest either.
I think if we could do it, we'd do it though, because it'd be a good like passive source of income, and I think people would get some stuff out of it. So I don't know. Potentially,
maybe, I don't know.
When we're really rich and we can hire somebody to edit it for us.
That'd be cool.
So Don, chop.
Yeah.
Or get really rich and just like start a school.
Or get
fly
really
people
rich
out here,
and
yeah.
fuck off and not.
Yeah. Why are we doing this hard work?
Good point. You guys taught 2 knife making classes this year, right?
Yeah.
I think there were
2, 3? 2.
2 plus a couple sharpening ones.
Yeah.
Wait, was the last one this year?
Yeah, it like just happened.
No. This past one was, but the one before, was it this
I
year?
don't remember. That's why I
I
was
think it was last year.
No, it was this year. Earlier in the spring.
Like January or?
It was March.
Oh yeah, it was around your birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were 2 this year. Yeah, there were totally 2 this year.
Oh jeez, that shows you how crazy a year I had. Like,
Right? I want to know though, do you guys get anything out of teaching? Like,
fuck yeah.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
specifically this year, did you guys walk away with something new from like this year's classes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Well, I mean, it really, really forces you to think structurally. Like you have to, because when you're working, you're kind of just vibing with what you're doing, but to like have to put it into English,
For sure.
it helps. It makes you a better maker because you're like, oh, well, now that I have the idea to express to other people, you can express it to yourself. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, and like going back to us thinking about the geometry again, we've been rethinking geometry and how we approach it because of classes. It's like,
classes, yeah.
well, how do we translate this physical thing into like a step-by-step process?
Right, exactly.
And then it's made us realize, like, oh, if we push up certain points of the geometry and convexity, it works better this way or that way.
Right. And to simplify it to the point where you could teach it to somebody and then have them make a knife in like 4 days.
Yeah.
It really kind of makes you, narrows your focus, and which I think is good.
Yeah. We get a lot.
I know that you already mentioned you're going to take the friction folder class coming up. You've also had people take your classes who have already made knives before, but specifically wanted to learn about chef's knives and like your style.
Yeah.
Do you get inspired by or have an interest in learning other types of knives just to kind of keep you going with new ideas for chef's knives?
Yeah. I mean, one example is a dagger. I've been wanting to make a dagger for a long time. I just haven't gotten around to it. But like, I love the idea of like the dagger or sword being designed based off ratios and circles and stuff like that. And that it's not just like, oh, it needs sharp point, stabby, right? There's like this whole process of like how the design is like derived from almost like mathematical equations. And I think that's really cool to see that it's been done for like centuries that way. And then what else? EDCs are cool. I think about doing EDCs on a regular basis, but haven't gone around. I don't know. Kitchen stuff is like the main focus though.
For sure. I meant more like, do other types of knives still inspire you?
Yeah.
Or challenge you in the kitchen knife arena? Like, do you look at an EDC and go, ooh, I have an idea for
Sometimes.
how I can apply something to a chef's knife?
Sometimes, yeah, but I think a lot of my inspiration nowadays doesn't even come from knives anymore. It comes from the iterations from what we do, and then sometimes it comes from like outside sources, like way off from knives, like sci-fi art or like, I don't know, architecture or cars.
I think we're probably hitting up against the time limit that you want. So I think we can close with next year's coming up. What's your top goal or thing you want to pursue for next year? It could be shop improvements. It could be knife related.
It's so much.
Pick one thing.
Design series. Want to get that going. I want a hydraulic press. I want to start doing more Damascus. I want to upgrade the shop more. I want to be more consistent in the shop. Fuck, what else is there? Teach more classes.
What about you, Sam? Do you have anything? Or of those things, do you have a favorite one that you want to push Don to actually complete? Because we know that he's probably not going to get to all those things.
My goal is to work more efficiently and try and produce more, just like more knives. Because like I think it's just the holidays, things drag and you feel like you're not doing anything.
Right, and you have to like pick back up your pace and get back into.
So it'd be nice to get to a kind of a flow where we could put a knife out pretty regularly and then just hope that people buy them.
Is there a piece of equipment that you would really look forward to having in the shop? Don mentioned hydraulic press, right? If you were to make like a major shop change or add a major piece of equipment, is there anything on your hit list, or are you more focused on refining what you already have?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I'm sorry if that was a bad question.
I don't really care about that stuff. Me as the equipment, I want to get better.
That's a good answer.
I think it's a great answer.
Yeah, but I can't think of anything. I think one of our scribes broke. So
no.
Maybe another one of those.
Precious scribe. Oh,
New
man.
shop lighting. Shop lighting's been on the list for 4 years. And
Yeah. Fucking.
Better drill press?
No, well, the drill press is okay. Better way to fix stuff, but the fucking bandsaw. Better bandsaw. Let's do that.
Yeah.
That's been on the list for a while too.
Bandsaw sucks.
Yeah, but
It's been hard to find a metal
We
cutting
have to
one.
hard
use
because there's like-
it sucks so bad. We have to use a broken like feed guide just to cut steel because it's so broken that the blade is bent one direction so that we can actually cut a large piece of bar stock. It's embarrassing.
It's pretty hysterical to see. You should like take a quick shot of that and edit that in at the
yeah.
end of this because
But
I
the problem is
Sam.
there's no like vertical bandsaw that really does what we want to do, except when you start getting like really big, expensive industrial.
Yeah, that's
bandsaw.
fine. We'll just live with that.
Yeah, we are just gonna live with that.
Do you guys have any other questions for each other that you wanted to hit for this Q&A?
Sam, why are you so good?
Sam is really good. Why are you so good?
I'm not good.
You're a pretty good human. Like you're just a
Don,
good
why
guy.
do you like weeb shit?
That I can't answer.
This conversation's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I don't know. Fuck. What's wrong with you? Why are you so stupid?
I don't know. I ask that every
Why are
morning.
you so talented? Why are you
Why are you so
fucking-
stinky?
I don't know that either.
Why are you good at everything you do, cocksucker?
Those are
Practice
all
a
good
lot.
questions.
I don't know.
Well,
Thanks for
I was
watching,
going to say, do y'all have a thing to close this out?
fuckers.
Yeah. Subscribe, fuckers.
This is an interesting,
Also,
ring the
calling?
tip of that bell.
just the tip of the
Oh.
bell.
Well, video's over. Someone's calling.
Okay, Don's gonna go. Thanks for your time, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
If you like Q&As, let them know and ask more questions.
Yeah.
Sure.
Pipper, I was so hard for you to stay quiet the whole time.
I bet. Oh,
So hard for you.
he's like, can I go?